And welcome in to the Fantasy 4-Packs, start of our mock draft Monday series that we always do through the month of August while we take you through the various different common formats that you're going to see. Try and showcase some of the different draft strategies and whatnot. We're going to be doing a standard draft today to lead the series off. So for all of you people still stuck in 2012 and you need to know how which running backs are the best and don't really care about receiver volume as much, this is the video for you. We do have some news before we get into the meat and potatoes of the mock draft. Going to do some dual news for the Packers first because it's easier just to sandwich them together. Rodgers finally agreed to terms with the Packers. No, we don't know the details of the contract yet. And also, Randall Cobb was traded to the Packers.
I hate it.
I don't care, honestly. I mean, Randall Cobb, I think, immediately becomes their second best wide receiver.
I mean, I guess I hate it more from an actual football perspective because now you're letting a quarterback who's not happy with your system dictate what's going on to your team and what's not.
Oh, sure.
Randall Cobb's old. He hasn't been able to play the position. He's like a $10 million salary hit, and they just drafted a slot receiver.
Yep. Amari Rodgers is dead.
Yep.
Randall Cobb was a cheap trade, at least. He was a 6th-round draft pick in exchange for him. So, Houston really building up that draft capital over there. But, yeah, I mean, it's just this does nothing for me. I think it helps Rodgers out a bit. It's it's a receiver he's comfortable with. He's played with Randall Cobb a lot over his career. It's probably going to buoy Rodgers' numbers just a little bit, bring his floor up a little bit. I don't know how much it affects his ceiling. I think as far as Rodgers agreeing to terms with the Packers, it just means that Rodgers is going to ball out and have a great Rodgers year, so that he has his pick of destinations next year. So, if anything, I consider this good news for the fantasy outlook for Rodgers because that man is going to just burn every bridge out of town. I think on his way out, just go on an absolute shootout campaign and then just be like, deuces, bitches.
I think that for me personally, I am very happy to hear this because that means that I don't have to worry about Aaron Jones as much anymore.
Sure.
As far as his, security and, floor.
Yeah.
I mean, Aaron Jones is probably the one that I was worried about the least if Rodgers left. But yeah, no, I think this is just basically no news for the Packers. Speaking of no news, Dak Prescott pulled a muscle in his shoulder in practice. He should be fine for the start of the regular season. They're not talking about this being a long-term injury at all. So bullet dodged there. I know we were all holding our breath when Prescott walked off the field early in training camp. It's like, oh, no. You're supposed to be such a good fantasy offense.
Yeah.
So good news there. In more no news, Cole Kmet is expected to see an increased role in the Chicago Bears offense. I mean, do either of you guys, obviously tight end's a wasteland. Does this do anything for either of you guys?
No, I pretty much expected that. That's pretty much, yeah.
There's just so many more. Even with him getting this uptick in volume from the coaches, not from actual, not actually hard evidence that's going to happen. I'm still just not interested. Like, I've heard Andy Dalton's looking better under center out there, but for me, there's still, if I'm targeting a Bears tight end, it better be just because there's a really good matchup and Cole Kmet has been doing it.
I mean, I think if you're targeting a Bears tight end, you're still targeting Jimmy Graham. He got like legitimate volume last year, and he's still on the team.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, this means Jimmy Graham's a little bit more dead to me than he already was.
For me, this is I'll wait till I see it on the field. If I miss out on Cole Kmet's breakout season, shucks, Yeah. I don't really want any part of this tight end game, unless I can see some clarity in front of me.
Yeah.
Devonte Parker sadly placed on the PUP. He's had injury issues throughout his career. He seems like he's being kind of phased out there with them drafting his replacement, signing Will Fuller. It's just I didn't really have a role for him on this team anyway this season, so this doesn't really matter to me. Are either you guys higher on him than me, or?
He's just a yearly guy that I've always liked and I've always hoped for the breakout. You figure with the offense starting to gel, and
it just feels like it's not happening at this point.
Yeah, it feels like it's just kind of they have moved past him.
Yeah,
he's probably going to be just onto another team, and just this slow spiral towards him.
I feel like
moving to a background.
I feel like-
just talk about wasted talent,
I feel like we're kind of getting like the Sterling Shepard, not in terms of talent, but like we're getting the, he might be good someday, and then he kind of just hits his ceiling, and we're like, okay, it's gonna be next year, and then he does it again. And it's like, okay, well now we know where Parker's ceiling is.
As Red Sox fans, the whole Clay Buchholz syndrome, he's turning 31, and everyone's like, he's going to break out any day now.
Yeah,
Except the worst part about this is Adam Gase's doing. Like, this is all... I feel like this is... Him and Sterling Shepard both have the situation where they were both very good wide receivers. They just were on bad teams, so they could never really fully break out and make use of their talents.
Sure. Lamar Jackson held out of practice due to COVID-19. Him and Gus Bus are both placed on the COVID reserve list. Fortunately, it's far enough before the season that this shouldn't really affect things.
Yeah.
I don't know I haven't actually heard if they actually have COVID or if it was just close contact. Knocking on wood that it's just a scare and that Lamar Jackson's going to be back out there. Curtis Samuel, groin placed on the PUP. Should be ready for the start of the regular season, though. He was not placed on the regular season PUP, just the training camp PUP. Carson Wentz, on the other hand, foot expected to miss the entire preseason. Like first day of training camp, new team, Carson Wentz goes out there and does something to his foot. And now he's seeing foot specialists. He's going to miss the preseason, and he may have to get surgery. And if he gets surgery, they're already saying that he's probably going to miss significant time in season. I mean, I can't even be mad anymore. It's like this guy is just he's like the SpongeBob character who wakes up every morning and breaks all of the bones in his body with glass skin and paper bones.
It is amazing to me that it's almost like it has to have. It's just like predetermined. Like Carson Wentz gets injured every year. Like, he feels like Arian Foster at this point. Where it's just like you just expect it.
I guess at least there's an upside. It happened early, so maybe he can just rest it and be good to go for the start of the regular season. But man, like that's I hate this just for so many reasons too. Because he was going to be a big boost for the Colts after Rivers leaving. At least going to, in my opinion, was going to return comparable value to what Rivers gave them, and now it's like, who are they going to roll out there? Like, we can't trust any of these wide receivers anymore if there's no halfway decent quarterback under center. I think the only person's value doesn't really get affected is Jonathan Taylor's.
Yeah, I just looked up their backup quarterbacks because
they just signed Brett Hundley this morning.
Yeah,
If this isn't enough to scare them, I could see Jim Irsay talking to the GM and just saying, "Go get Desean Watson right now."
Sure, I mean, I think the only person to be mad about that would be Carson Wentz.
And it's like he already proved he's not going to be reliable because, I mean, yes, this could be nothing. He could be good to go for the season, but it's like your confidence in him is already shaken.
Well, and it's probably not nothing. Like, if it's injuries that are nothing don't require you to go see foot specialists. Like, I'm sorry, that's just how that works. If this was nothing, it'd be ice and bed rest and he's back on the field next week.
Right, I guess. So I don't mean nothing. I mean like where it's
he can walk it off.
He is healthy for the season.
Yeah,
because I could say like if he just misses preseason, he's been a quarterback for long enough. It shouldn't affect him.
And he's in a familiar offense. He's played with Frank Reich before.
Right. So if you just told me if we were guaranteed he's going to be week 1 starter, ready to go,
yeah,
they're just like he's hurt enough, we're just going to hold him.
Yeah,
I would be like perfect, fine, whatever.
Yeah, no, hope for a quick recovery. Hopefully it's nothing. I'd like to see him have a career resurgence with the Eagles, but I'm not expecting much. Another quarterback that I'm not expecting much. This is a bad day for news. Another quarterback that I'm not expecting much for, Daniel Jones, was described as having a brutal day 3 of training camp, according to Zach Rosenblatt of NJ.com. While he did note that it was too early to really make any true negative outcomes or impressions or anything, he did say there was nothing positive that you could take away from his performance in practice. Like,
awesome.
Not at all what you want to hear about a guy that a lot of people are saying is, in a make or break season.
Yeah. Everyone thought it was a little bit of not quite nepotism, but when they drafted this kid, they basically were like, oh, he came up through Eli's camp, and Eli is such an influential thing, so we'll just take this kid. Cause,
He even looks kind of like him.
yeah, like, all this, like, just because he was attached to Eli Manning is why they drafted this kid. But
Sure.
it was like, oh, there's a little bit of fire to the smoke here. And it's like, all right, he just needs some time. He had a lot of injuries he had to deal with. There is something there. But now it's just turning into the point where it's like, he turns the ball over at an amazing rate, almost Hall of Fame. Like, if you get in the Hall of Fame for doing things poorly.
I mean, he did come up in Eli Manning's, system here. Another prodigious turner over of the ball.
But he didn't get that fourth quarter comeback
Sure.
skill.
Yeah, no, he missed the upside. He just learned how to give the ball to the other team.
Yeah.
I hate this. I mean, there's so many players in the Giants that I want to like, but if the quarterback is going to be a dumpster fire, I can't like any of them. Like, it doesn't matter how talented Kenny Golladay or Saquon Barkley is. If Daniel Jones is turning over the ball every other drive, they're not going to score points because you have to have the ball to score points.
Yep.
All right. Only one more piece of bad news, I swear, and then we have two good pieces to round out the news, and then we can get into the mock draft here. Cortland Sutton, according to head coach Vic Fangio, is still holding back. Doesn't look to be his former self yet, which is not what you want to hear this far removed from the injury.
Yeah.
It seems like there's like you would assume he's fully healthy at this point, unless he had a bad doctor or bad rehab or something, which means that there's mental blocks, and we've seen it before with football players. Mental blocks can almost be more debilitating than the actual injury because they can stop you ever getting back to what you were.
Yeah, if he's out there and he's not running it full because he thinks, if I cut too hard, I could just injure myself again. Like,
yeah,
it's one of those things where every time he goes to make an athletic NFL caliber move, if he's not confident in his body to make the move, then he might cut it short. And at the NFL level, you can't cut it short. You need to be going full blast every time just to be able to get open as a receiver.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a good thing if you're in the Jerry Jeudy camp, because if Cortland Sutton's not going to be able to get up to full speed, then that's a huge boost for Jeudy, who I already think was probably more talented than Sutton anyway. But like, you were just like, especially with Bridgewater going in there, you were hoping that he was going to be good to go so that we could see some fireworks on that team for once.
Yep.
I don't know. Hopefully it's just rust and he shrugs it off and gets back to full form.
Yep.
Sort of good news, depending on which running back camp you're in. Despite the fantasy community anointing Javonte Williams as the de facto starter in Denver, Denver is saying, hold your damn horses, it's Melvin Gordon. According to Benjamin Albright of KOA Colorado, Melvin Gordon has been the clear RB1 in camp so far, running far and ahead of Javonte Williams. I mean, I can't say I'm surprised. I kind of expected this, especially where they took Javonte Williams. They didn't burn super high draft capital on him. He seemed like he was being taken, in my opinion, at least, to be the next guy, not the this year guy. But like, I'm probably avoiding this backfield unless I'm forced into picking someone. Are either of you guys taking a more hardline stance on this backfield? Are either of you guys willing to risk taking? Because I think it's either Gordon or Williams that you're going after here, and you kind of have to take a stance on one or the other if you're going to draft them. Are you guys in either camp firmly? And if you are, where are you willing to take one of these players?
I'm with this news. If it keeps up through camp, I'm definitely in on drafting Melvin Gordon. Especially if they're using the verbiage, clear and far away RB1, because we know Melvin Gordon has a 3-down skill set.
Sure.
It's more just, was he going to get the usage? He had to deal with, not getting the full carries because they were going to Philip Lindsay for passing downs and stuff like that.
Also, they were questionably playing without a quarterback last year, so,
Basically. So, all the upgrades they've made, if Cortland Sutton's less of a factor, then they're going to need to rely on somebody. So, I think I see this as more of almost like a move like the Patriots just did, where Sony was the guy. They brought in Damian Harris, but Damian Harris needed years to fully take that over. So I think we're going to see a similar situation where this year's Melvin's, next year Javonte Williams.
And maybe we see some Javonte Williams this year where he eats into like some passing volume or gets some work in blowouts. But yeah, I'm kind of in the same camp as you. Frankie, what about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same camp, but I'm more leaning towards the, just not in the backfield at all. I I don't like this.
So if you're avoiding it entirely, Vitaly, where is the earliest that you'd be willing to, like, let's pretend for a moment that it's draft time and you're looking at taking, a Denver running back. Where is the earliest you would be taking Melvin Gordon?
I'm just kind of scrolling through Sleeper right now. Kind of looking at what I'm looking at because I have a really high. A lot of my strategies that I've liked going into this year, almost regardless of draft position, have been very RB heavy. In the
Melvin Gordon is currently the RB 30 and half point, ADP of 71.
71. So that puts him in company with guys like Damian Harris.
He's going just behind Raheem Mostert, just ahead of Ronald Jones.
Yeah, a little ahead of Zach Moss. I mean, I think the issue is there's a lot of talent in that area. So like,
sure.
For at least looking through our mock draft in the standard, he's going around 55, 56 ADP.
Yeah.
I would much rather just wait. I'd rather take a shot on James Robinson, Ronald Jones. I'd rather have Damian Harris, Zach Moss. Like, that's kind of the area. Like, I'll take him after that. So, for me, he needs to fall probably behind that. Like, I'll make the concession more like if he goes behind Mike Davis, I think that's a good spot for him.
Well, currently he is behind Mike Davis.
Yeah, at least so in the half point ADP, that's where he is. But right now in standard, I was just scrolling through. This is where he is now. So if I'm just looking for today's draft or today's mock draft, that's where I have him is. He needs to be going late, and the only reason I'd be taking him myself is if I am trying to supplement my team with a top receiver.
So you think like 7th, 8th round?
Yeah, I think I could see myself take. I think 7th is a good round.
Sure. And then we'll round up the news with some good news here. We were joking about it last episode when, the Bears came out and said we could see Dave Montgomery getting 20 carries a game. The Lions were like, DeAndre Swift get 25. And then Matt Nagy doubled down and he says, we don't see any reason why Dave Montgomery can't have 20 to 25 carries a game. So I guess there's just some rivalry going on between Matt Nagy and Dan Campbell that I wasn't aware of. But, all joking aside, I do kind of love this news for David Montgomery because, if you hear it once, that could just be coach talk. But, now Matt Nagy has come out and doubled down and said, oh, no. We fully expect to get him 20-plus carries a game. It's like, oh, okay. I am steadily becoming more interested in David Montgomery as Nagy keeps coming out and talking more about him because, eventually you have to take the man at his word, right?
It is Matt Nagy.
Sure.
Who loves his magical tricks of who am I going to start.
Sure.
This could be the biggest setup ever, and then David Montgomery.
They trade him a week before the season starts.
Big reveal! Ha ha!
Big reveal! He's on the Texans, Morty.
Yeah.
All right, no, I'm happy about it because I do like where Dave Montgomery's going this season. If he's going to get more guaranteed volume he got last year, he could have a huge season, especially with Justin Fields looking. I don't know if you guys have seen in these videos. Justin Fields looks like he's making some NFL caliber throws in training camp so far. He looks nice.
I am big sad.
Yeah, that we didn't get him. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Cam Newton's our starting quarterback according to Bill.
Yeah, Steve's still in the Cam Newton camp, and I'm just, at this point, why?
I don't want to talk about Mac Jones and Cam Newton. I want to get on to this draft here. Before we get into the draft, if you like the knowledge we're bringing to the table, if you enjoy seeing our smiling faces, if you want to find out exactly when our new videos come out, as they come out, subscribe to us, hit that notification bell, follow us on Twitter. You can see our socials all over the screen here, as Frankie was just pointing to them.
Yes.
Best way to contact us always is on Twitter if you got any fantasy football questions. We love hearing from you guys. I think it's time to get into this mock draft.
I did want to just throw in a little tidbit of news that I've been hearing.
Sure.
Speaking of Sleeper, it's a great it's an app I recommend. Even if you don't play on Sleeper, you get so much news that's great. One thing I was looking through, and I'm surprised. I haven't seen much more talk about it. It seems like Jalen Hurts is actually playing very well in camp. He had, I think it was a 40-yard touchdown to Miles Sanders, and then the next day I opened up the app, he had a 60-yard ball to Devonta Smith. So I'm surprised. He was a running quarterback, and it sounds like some good news is coming out of the camp for this guy.
If I had to speculate as to why, I've heard the Eagles bandied about as a potential landing spot for Desean Watson. So it could be that people just aren't talking about him because they don't expect him to be the starting quarterback there.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I agree. I've seen that. I've seen that news bouncing around too. I mean, he's a running quarterback going almost in the double-digit rounds. He could be this year's Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes if he turns out to be good. Like he's entirely worth a look.
Yep.
All right, let's get into this mock draft here. We're doing, as I said before, a standard scoring mock draft. That means no points per reception. We're going to be doing 1.5 minutes per pick. Obviously, the computer's just going to speed through theirs. 14 rounds. As usual, we are not drafting kickers because kickers aren't people.
Yep.
So I'm on the clock first, and I'm a little surprised by the
Same.
by the running backs that went off the board ahead of me. I mean, so I think even in a standard draft, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, and Dalvin Cook should be the top 3. However, taken before me, Barkley and Elliott, as well as McCaffrey and Henry, means that I get Dalvin Cook at 1-5. There's not a lot of thought that goes into the decision. If Dalvin falls to you at 5, you take Dalvin at 5.
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
And then after me, we're going to see Kamara and Chubb go off the board. Chubb is one that I'm not surprised went earlier because he is such a talented runner. You're going to see him go earlier in standard drafts. He doesn't add much to the passing game, but you don't care about that as much in standard scoring. Frankie, who are you looking at here? Are you thinking about Jonathan Taylor?
I am looking at Jonathan Taylor here.
Ground and pound workhorse?
It's more the fact that there's kind of like I'm finding in this range after pick 8, there's that, usual wide receiver tight end gap we get in round 1. And I don't want to wait through that to see what running backs come out. I'd rather just lock up a running back who's going to get the volume and who has the talent.
Were you hoping for Chubb here?
I was kind of hoping for Chubb here.
Sure, I can understand that.
Based on just how those first 4 picks worked out, I was, Chubb, Kamara, whoever fell to me. But, I'm not mad about Taylor. It's just an easy pick for me.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think this is one thing that if you're in standard drafts, you're going to see a lot of this year because the wide receiver position doesn't matter as much in standard. You're going to see running back hammered even harder than it is in half point and PPR because that's where the bulk of your points come from.
Yeah.
Are you reaching on a running back here, Vital, or are you going to lock up a Devonte Adams?
I am going to go ahead and lock up Devonte Adams, mainly here because it's a long reach to the next running back, and Devonte Adams is that caliber of receiver that I can really just fade receiver for the next 3 rounds and have elite production because we know, yes, receptions mean less, but he gets a lot of touchdowns, and now that I know that Aaron Rodgers will be there and be his quarterback,
and not just a lot of touchdowns, but he gets a lot of volume too, and a lot of quality volume because of who it's coming from. I can't argue with that pick there.
Yeah, and I got lucky that the picks after me kind of followed in my suit there, going very heavy wide receiver. And
only one running back off the board in the next 6 picks.
And left me with a running back I am very happy to take here, and I will take Mr. Austin Eckler.
See, he's one that I honestly think I'd rather have Mixon or Gibson in standard than Eckler, because while I love Austin Eckler, I'm shouting from the rooftops about him. I think he's going to have a great season this year. I don't love him in non PPR, half PPR leagues because that's where so much of his value comes from, is being an exemplary wide receiver at the running back position, basically.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. His value is depressed in this mode, but when I look at Mixon, and I've already spoken why I'm not a huge Mixon guy right now. Gibson's a little unproven for this high, and I think I can get guys that are of a Gibson style a little bit later.
Sure.
I'll just go with the known commodity, a guy who's been, shown top 5 talent, but just has been injury prone a little bit.
Yeah, just count on him to be a focal point of that offense, and the points will come.
Yep.
Frank, what are you looking at here?
I'm kind of torn between, that stud receiver. I'm looking at Calvin Ridley and Mixon here. I am just fading Antonio Gibson because, again, he's not really super proven in PPR. He matters less. I'm probably just going to go against my gut here and just draft Mixon because I do want to come out of the first 3 rounds with at least 3 running backs, and I'm not sure I would have lasted until the 3rd round. If the 3rd round's kind of weird for me. It's you're either going to get what you want or you're going to be kind of sitting in the middle of everybody. The 8th pick's kind of why I've been leaning towards the back end.
Yeah.
Because I think the bookends are really good this year. the middle's kind of iffy for me, depending how your draft falls. But yeah, I'm happy with Mixon there.
I'm actually going to go against the grain here and pick Calvin Ridley. I generally want to be, especially because I was saying, before when I was saying that running backs are especially more important in standard. That being said, getting Dalvin at 1.5 really changes my draft strategy. He anchors that position like almost no one else in football can. I feel a lot safer now with my running back position going into the middle rounds, which I think allows me to take a high upside guy like Calvin Ridley at the 2.8, which isn't something I see myself doing often, even in our more standard for us, half point leagues and whatnot.
And I do like that pick. I'm actually surprised that Calvin Ridley isn't a little higher in standard, just because if you're shooting for a wide receiver, especially in the earlier rounds, I think the number one thing I want to get is a guy with high touchdown upside.
Yeah.
And Ridley is one of those guys where, like, Metcalf can get great yardage, yes, but Ridley, I feel, has a better chance of hitting 10-plus touchdowns.
Well, I mean, yeah, you wanna get the guys that are focal points of their offense in standard scoring, because you don't get the benefit of the half point or the full point per catch they get. You want to get the guys that are going to be hyper targeted. They're going to fall into the end zone a lot, because that's really the only way they're going to get points. Honestly, I don't like guys like AJ Brown and DK Metcalf as much in standard because they're such low volume guys. Their floors are going to be low. Yeah. Like they're like lose you weeks type low. I'm actually going to, because I'm curious to see what my team looks like if I do this, and I don't think he's going to be here at my next pick. I'm going to reach on a guy I was just singing the praises of. I'm going to grab Dave Montgomery here as my second running back. I like him a little bit better than some of the other guys on the board currently. I was between him and Najee, and I trust. It sounds weird to say, I trust the Bears' offense more than the Steelers. So if Dave Montgomery is going to be getting guaranteed volume, I'm perfectly fine taking him at 3.5 in a standard scoring league, because obviously he's another guy who doesn't really catch the ball much, but he's a grinder on the ground. So and I think that gives me a really, really solid, fairly healthy running back duo to build on going into these middle rounds.
Yeah, he definitely wouldn't have been there in your next pick.
I knew one of you two assholes would have taken him if I left him there.
Yeah, I gotta say real quick before we jump to your pick, Frankie, the guy who's picking right behind you, Ian, I love his team so far.
Kamara, Gibson, and Sanders.
That is a great opening to a team. Sanders, I'm hoping for a resurgence. He said I was a Sanders guy before. He's kind of creeping up, and people are sleeping on him, so I'm hoping there is there, but. When you have him as your third running back behind Gibson and Kamara,
I just don't love Sanders at 3. I think 3.6 is too early for Sanders. When there's guys like Clyde and Najee and Carson still on the board, you can't be taking him there.
Yeah, he's the one I could say there, but like just the overall the quality of running back he's coming out of.
I think the philosophy is good.
Yes.
I don't love. I think Sanders would have been there at 4.7.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just went and scooped up Nadja Harris here. I mean, I talked about it in our previous episode where, I mean, I'm liking him if he's in the third round.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a guy that has top 10 upside as far as volume goes.
You can make roughly the same case for him that you can for David Montgomery. And if a guy's going to have crazy volume in the third round, that's upside. It's hard to find.
And at this point, I have maybe 3 RB1s on my team. I don't have a lot of wide receivers. Actually, I have no wide receivers. But
one could say 0.
But we talked about how wide receiver matters less in standard scoring, and there are plenty of other. I think.
Yeah, well, because you're just hunting for touchdowns.
Yeah,
so really, you can just play matchups.
I mean, I'm just scrolling through the list. There's plenty of guys out there who I would be happy having as my wide receiver 1.
I agree.
Yep.
Vitelli, what are you looking at here at 3.9?
So when Frankie's pick came up and I saw Najee Harris sitting there, I knew that was probably going to be the pick with how glowingly you spoke about him. And I saw that there was other running backs I like in this area, so I was very happy. I'm going to go ahead and just lock up CEH here.
If I recall, Frankie said that he thinks he could be okay.
The okayest running back out there. All right, on the turn.
So you've got a pretty solid team now, Vitelli. Devontae Adams, Austin Eckler, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Are you looking at drafting a third running back here to deepen that position a little bit, or are you going to try and grab one of these other like borderline elite wide receivers?
I'm probably going to go borderline elite wide receiver here, mainly because I think the only one I was looking at, if I was going to triple up running back in this area, it was probably going to be like a Chris Carson, maybe a Josh Jacobs.
Sure.
But with them being gone, I feel like I can't pass on guys like an Amari Cooper or a Robert Woods. I've gone a lot Robert Woods. I think I want to go with Amari Cooper here just because if Dak, like I said, with Dak back and if that offense is what it can be, I think Amari Cooper could just be a...
So let me interject here real fast. You're not worried about Amari Cooper's injury at all? I know he's targeting a mid-August return. You don't think that's going to linger into the season at all?
He does have that lingering injury issue. Like I said, it's more.
I mean, ankles can slow. Obviously, wide receivers need their ankles.
Yes. I am a little bit more assured in the pick because he's coming back mid-August. They're at least targeting that, and he doesn't really need the preseason. He knows the offense well enough. I think He has a great rapport with Dak. So for me, it's one of those ones where I've done a lot of Robert Woods and him are like right next to each other for me because Robert Woods is the safe guy, whereas Amari has the upside. And if I'm going standard where I don't get those half point for the catches, I want to go with the upside.
No, that's fair. I think Robert Woods is much more of a PPR type receiver anyway because he's a floor guy. He doesn't really have much of a ceiling.
Yep.
Frankie, what are you looking at here at 4-5?
Well, I'm looking at the floor guy. I'm looking at Robert Woods here because
fair.
I think that as far as my points, so the way that my team is right now with my 3 running backs for the first 3, I want that floor wide receiver. I mean, ideally, I'm looking for the boom, but
I mean, having a good floor guy as your wide receiver 1 allows you to hyper target boom later in drafts. We talked about it last year.
Yeah, I just want the guy who's going to give me those consistent points, whether it's 10, 15 in standard, and not have to worry about is he going to get the touchdown?
No, sure. I don't disagree with any of that. I think that even though Robert Woods is obviously more valuable in PPR formats, he's still going to turn in very consistent fantasy performances for you in standard. And he's a good anchor player, I guess. Is how I would go about saying that. I'm kind of torn here because I don't love any of the wide receivers or running backs in this range. I don't want to take a tight end here yet.
This is what I was talking about.
Because I don't want to take a tight end or a quarterback here yet because, Hawkinson, I think a lot of his value is going to come from volume, not as heavily from touchdowns. Volume obviously is not as important in this. I'm looking at maybe Mark Andrews here because Mark Andrews has been traditionally a pretty high touchdown guy. I mean, honestly, I think I'm going to take a risk here. I want to see what my team looks like at the end of the day. I'm going to draft Kyler Murray, a guy who I think is in line to potentially be the QB1 at the end of the season.
I was going to tell you who to pick, but I was going to say pick Kyler.
Yeah, I just don't love the wide receivers and running backs in that range, and I think Kyler presents a hard tier break at that point over the rest of the quarterbacks in the league. Obviously, with Mahomes going in the second, and then just going to Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson after that. But I think Kyler is in a much stronger offense, and he has a much higher rushing floor, as well as having a pretty high passing ceiling. Which Josh Allen's rushing floor is lower, Lamar Jackson's passing ceiling is lower. I think Kyler to me represents that tier 1 tier break. Mm-hmm. So I really like being able to take him there. And then on the wraparound, if I wanted to, I'm not going to because I don't think you can take an early tight end and an early quarterback. I think that just messes with your team too much. But if I wanted to, Mark Andrews is still on the board. Tyler Lockett's here, who I hate. Melvin Gordon is on the board. I'm probably going to go ahead and lock up my second wide receiver here, actually. Going to take T. Higgins. I've talked about him a little bit already this season. I like his touchdown upside in that offense. That should be a pretty high volume offense. They found the end zone, not as much as you would like last season, but enough that I think there is room to grow this year. I just talked about Burrow being a breakout guy. I'm gonna believe my own takes, and if Joe Burrow's gonna break out, his wide receivers got to break out with him.
Fair.
Frankie, what are you taking at 5'8"?
Well, I was thinking about T. Higgins, but
I'm sniping you from 3 picks away, Frankie.
I'm happy with my second guy. I am looking at another receiver. We as a collective hate Tyler Lockett.
Just as an aside, I've been seeing it again. like more so since we did our busts episode, or just the people coming out of the woodwork being like, hey guys, I think Tyler Lockett's going to be pretty good again this season. It's like, why? Do we just like reset our brains after every season?
It's why when I was first looking at doing Tyler Lockett in our bust episode, I was like, but it's obvious. I'm like, no, if we're going to be a fantasy show, we should put out the number one bust out there.
Well, because like
somebody has to talk about it.
Because these aren't dumb people half the time that are talking, but it's like, just don't forget, Tyler Lockett's just sitting there in the 5th round. It's like, yeah, he's going to win you one game and lose you the other 15.
Yeah, I'm just going to go with my second choice, which is Brandon Ayuk.
I hate that. I hate everything about that. I like Trey Sermon, and that's about it on that team this year. I guess George Kittle, but that team's a mess.
The one person I was worried about
or a mess for fantasy purposes.
This is an area where I feel like I very heavily differ from the ADP and the list in front of me. Like, I like Hawk. I don't like Hawk in the 5th. I like Melvin Gordon. I don't like him in the 5th. Chase Edmonds. He definitely doesn't feel like a 5th round guy to me. I'm gonna scroll down here and I'm gonna take a running back that I think has 5th round value, and
sure.
I'm gonna go ahead and take Desean Harris.
That's who I was thinking you were going to grab.
I knew you were going to grab him.
That's why I was like, oh, Frankie, don't do it. Don't do it to me.
So, I would have been kind of surprised if Frankie took Desean Harris there. With Frankie already having 3 running backs, he was kind of pigeonholed into taking a receiver there.
Fair. And look at that. If I want, I can go ahead and take Melvin Gordon here if I want, or for James Robinson.
Now, you already have 2 wide receivers and 3 running backs. Obviously, when we mock draft for 3 wide receivers. Would you take a 4th running back before you lock up a quarterback, a tight end, or a 3rd wide receiver? Especially knowing the range we're in, where like the good wide receivers are starting to leave the board.
It is a thought that crosses my mind, especially like just seeing running backs that have potential. It makes me want to go that way. It definitely is it lowers your team's floor, I would say. But it definitely makes sure that if one of these guys busts, I have another one that is higher tier quality, or just a trade chip if I want to go. But I usually don't like to draft for trading.
Yeah, drafting for trading is a loser mentality.
Yeah, it's putting you on the back foot early. But I got to say, I'm not a huge fan of the tight ends. Like I said, once again, the tight ends feel a little bit overvalued right here.
Honestly, I kind of like Dallas Goedert. I don't love him in the 6th, but like 6th, 7th, I'm hesitantly interested in Dallas Goedert.
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and get a floor play here. I'm going to reach a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and take Tyler Boyd. Like I said, if I do believe in Joe Burrow, and
sure,
he's going to be he's going to be enough involved in that offense where I think he's going to give me floor points each week to buoy my 2 kind of boom receivers.
No, I mean, Boyd is honestly probably going too late. I mean, according to Sleeper's ADP, the wide receiver 38 in standard and the wide receiver 29 in PPR, like. Boyd is a very, very, very consistent wide receiver. He rarely does something sexy. He suffers from the same thing that Robert Woods does, but he's a little less consistent than Robert Woods.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I've never understood the hate that Tyler Boyd gets.
Right, and like I said, because it seems like as a show, we think that the Bengals are going to take a step forward as a team. You got to
at least as a fantasy team.
Yeah, as a fantasy team, and I'd say at least a little bit as an NFL team. But if we think that, then it stands to reason that Tyler Boyd's just going to get a little dash of sexy on top.
As I've said whenever I've talked about Joe Burrow, if Joe Burrow is going to break out, his receivers are going to break out with him. We saw that volume last year, 40 targets a game. Those aren't all going to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
All right. What are you looking at, Frankie?
Well, I was looking at Tyler Boyd as my next pick, but
take your boy Cortland Sutton, Frankie.
No, I am taking my boy Ronald Jones here as my 4th running back. We've seen Joe Mixon get injured before.
Sure.
And Ronald Jones is a guy where he's never put up those huge numbers, but he's been a serviceable floor running back. So if Joe Mixon does get injured again, cool. If not, I mean, it's never bad to have more running backs on your team. I haven't finished out my wide receivers yet, but I've scrolled down the list a little bit. I think I can fill it in later in the draft, and I'll be fine.
No, yeah, that's fair. Honestly, I was kind of hoping that either Melvin Gordon or Ronald Jones would fall to me, but I'm not terribly upset if neither of them did.
Yeah, there's a couple of guys on the board I like still, as far as running backs.
Yeah, I'm probably going to take Travis Etienne here.
That's who I was thinking.
I don't believe in James Robinson at all. He's being taken way too high for the pick that was spent on Etienne. you have to follow follow the money here. ETN fits Urban's style of play calling a little bit more than James Robinson, where James Robinson is a little more a plotter, a grinder. ETN is, I think, more capable in Urban Meyer's offense. I expect him to end up being the starter, even if he doesn't start the season as it. And yeah, I don't see the upside of James Robinson is that he gets 200, maybe 250 carries, and is just kind of average because he's now sharing the load with ETN, whereas ETN's upside is top 15 running back.
Fair. I find myself it's definitely a backfield. I'm waiting to see how it rolls out. I think that ETN's getting a little more hype than I'd want to see because he feels like he's going to end up more as a wide receiver than a running back.
Sure.
Which could still provide you value, but I need the team to come out and make a hard stance about what they're doing with their running backs before I really invest in it. So for now, it's just a wait and see.
Yeah, I just believe talent's going to win out, and I think he's the most talented running back on that team. And then speaking of talent winning out, because I know one of you guys is going to snipe him, so he's not going to be here at the 8-8, I'm going to take Jerry Jeudy. I want a piece of that Denver offense. I like Jerry Jeudy. I think he's going to be a big potential breakout guy this year. And at 7'5", and as my wide receiver 3, I think he presents a ton of wide receiver 2. 3. I think he provides a ton of upside for me.
Yeah, I actually got sniped by the pick after you. I was looking at Robbie Anderson.
He was the other guy I was looking at.
Yeah.
I was going to snipe one of you guys there. I was either taking Robbie Anderson or Jerry Jeudy because I love both those guys in the 7th round.
So you sniped me too deep. It's fine. I am also going to get a piece of that Denver offense here. A guy I liked last year a lot, who I said could have been the tight end 5.
Noah Fantastic.
Noah Fant is a bust at this point, Frankie, so I will heavily endorse you wasting a pick.
I will happily.
You realize there are better tight ends on the board still, right? You don't have to take Noah Fant.
No, I agree. As far as
is he holding your family hostage? Frankie, blink twice if he has your family hostage in the basement.
One of the basement's flooded, but anyways. No, he's a big body in the end zone, and I think he's going to get the touchdown volume. I think he's going to get the touchdown upside. Just based on what we saw last year. Drew Lock clearly wasn't the answer.
Little bit of news just coming out of practices today. Apparently, the 49ers just wrapped up practice, and Trey Lance was looking very good. Apparently, he was showing exactly why. They didn't go into details in the news snippet, but apparently he was showing exactly why he deserved to be the number 3 pick.
That Brandon Ayuk pick's looking a little bit better, isn't it?
No, I don't dislike Brandon Ayuk because I don't believe in the quarterback. I dislike Brandon Ayuk because there's so many damn options on that team, and I hate convoluted target trees.
Fair.
And they already don't want to throw a lot. I know who their target 1 is. It's Kittle. You past that, you're just taking stabs in the dark, and it's that he's too expensive in the 5th round to be a stab in the dark. But I tell you, you took Zach Moss at 7'9". I know you are riding high on that kid, so there's no surprise for me there that you locked him up as a depth pick. What are you looking at here at 8'4"?
So right now we're coming down, and I'm looking through. Right now, me and Frankie are the only teams without quarterbacks.
Yep.
So as I look through, there's enough quarterbacks left where I don't really see myself taking a quarterback anytime soon. So, and it's becoming that way as well with tight end, but there is still a lot more teams out there, so I was considering going here. At 8'4", I actually was considering a little Kyle Pitts, as much as we're down on him.
To be fair, we're down on him in the 4th round.
Yeah.
If he's going in the 8th round, suddenly I'm more interested because it is a much lower, price of admission.
Yeah, he's one, and I honestly will probably grab another tight end. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and take some Pitts there. I'm gonna go with Kyle Pitts. Mainly because of I'll buy into some of the hype. It's a guy I don't see myself drafting too much, but at 8'4", it's a low cost of entry.
Sure.
And I can buoy that by grabbing another tight end that I like late.
No, I don't hate. I kind of hate the word bust because it implies that I don't like a player. There's almost no player in the draft that I just aside from Tyler Lockett, there's almost no player in the draft that I just hate. Price dependent. I'll draft anyone at some point in the draft.
Yeah, it's more bust. It should be more overvalued.
Yeah, I think at literally half what his ADP was when we were talking about Kyle Pitts being a bust. In the eighth round, if he busts, he's not hurting you as much. Instead, you're missing out on Brandon Cooks or Logan Thomas or James Conner for him instead of busting in the 4th round and missing out on Robert Woods.
Yeah,
Frankie, what are you looking at here at 8-5?
I was gonna pick Brandon Cooks here, but I don't know. I mean, we don't know who's quarterbacking
Tyrod Taylor.
And with that being said,
we do know who's quarterbacking that team because we know that come hell or high water, it's not Desean Watson. So you can prepare for a great season of Mr. Tyrod, who, if I recall, you're a fan of.
He's a 500 quarterback.
Yeah,
but
yeah. So go ahead and put your money where your mouth is, Frankie.
No. That being said, I am picking up Jamar Chase here.
If I hadn't drafted T Higgins earlier, I would have picked him. Where I picked Judy. I don't want to double down on Bengals wide receivers.
I gave him a look, but I was like, I'm already invested in Tyler Boyd, so I don't want to have to be like, which one is it?
I think that again, we think the Bengals are going to take a step forward. That being said, I'm picking one of them.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and lock up a 4th running back here. I'm going to take Mike Davis, a guy who, when we talked about him earlier this offseason, I wasn't a huge fan of him where he's going. Once again, love him in the 8th round.
Yeah.
He's going to get a ton of guaranteed volume. I don't think he's that talented of a guy, but who cares in the 8th round? He's my 4th running back off the board. I'm paying next to nothing for him.
Yeah, when I picked Zach Moss, I expected Mike Davis to not be there on my wraparound, so when I saw him staring at me, I was like, ugh. He's good value right here. But
it was one of those where it's like you just can't pick another running back.
I was like, I can't go 5 running backs.
That's how I felt about Najee in the 3rd. I was like, oh, he's there, and he's everything.
Yeah, but I think as far because I love to have depth at running back, and as far as a depth play goes, Mike Davis. I mean, he's probably a matchup dependent guy where you just plug him into your flex, in my opinion, and you just know he's going to go out there and get a bunch of carries, and against bad defenses, he's going to eat. So I'm fine with him at 8-8, and then at 9-5. I do still have to fill out my wide receiver position. I've only got 3 wide receivers. So I got to start taking shots at guys that I think have a high ceiling.
I feel like you're about to snipe me and I'm going to come across this table.
So I am drafting Devonta Smith here, who's been...
Oh, you did not snipe me.
I'm drafting Devonta Smith here, who has been having a nice training camp so far. It's only been a couple days.
That 60-yard touchdown, did I?
I don't like Devonta Smith generally, but if I'm targeting upside guys, I think he has more upside than Visca or Gallup or Hollywood in this range. I was really looking at him and Mike Williams here, and Devonta Smith hasn't shown to have injury issues yet. Mike Williams has, so I'm gonna go with the boom guy who I don't know if he has injury issues, as opposed to Mike Williams, who's gonna win me 3 games and then go play golf for the rest of the season because he blew out his knee or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of mad you took him here.
Well, are you looking at collecting all the rookies?
No, I was gonna go to, well, it's less that he's a rookie. It's more that he's definitely the clear number 1 receiver on that team already and hasn't played a snap in the NFL. So I'm gonna go with my second choice here. I'm gonna pick Michael Gallup. I think Dak's gonna throw the ball a ton this year, and Gallup, while he had a slow start to last season, end of the season he kind of pulled it together, and again, Dak Prescott, much better quarterback than Andy Dalton.
I don't love Gallup. I don't like having to, because I don't think that the Cowboys have a bad enough defense anymore that they're going to have to throw anywhere near as much as they did last season. And if you're targeting an offense with 3 wide receivers, you want to make sure their defense is putrid. It's half the reason that I'm okay with you drafting any of the 3 wide receivers from the Bengals, because I think they're all going to be relevant. I don't see the volume being there, especially with 2 volume it's not like there's a boom guy on that team. There's 2 volume hogs ahead of him on the depth chart in CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. Trickle down economics doesn't work, Frankie. It doesn't work in football either.
So I went with Vishka.
I figured you were picking Vishka there.
He's a guy I talked up last season. He's talking himself up. The fantasy community is getting behind him.
Good for him.
I love him in the 9th.
I do like Fishka this season. I just wish I knew that Trevor Lawrence was going to be good.
He's looking good to Tim Tebow. So with this pick, especially with today's news, it changed my some targeting strategy for me. I want another wide receiver because I kind of went light on it to begin with.
But you don't want to trust Pittman without Carson Wentz there?
Exactly. But it's actually different news. It's the news that it looks like a rookie might be taking over the Miami job. So I'm going to go with the number 1 rookie drafted, and Mr. Waddle. So I am not a huge fan of him, but if we're already getting injuries to Fuller, Devonte Parker looks like he's getting phased out. They got to throw the ball somewhere, and Jalen Waddle looked.
Well, no, Devonte Parker is the one that's placing the pup. Fuller is just a little banged up.
So one's really banged up. The other one has a suspicious injury and he's already an injury-prone player. So it's like I'm already seeing nicks and dings to the
day to day with a foot.
Right. Day-to-day with the foots are important, so it's one of those things where this late I will take a shot on Jalen Waddle, who was supposed to be the most complete receiver coming out of this draft.
So while I don't hate the shot, I guess, I don't like Miami for the same reason I don't like San Francisco, where it's like there's just too much similar talent where I don't think any of those wide receivers are like, head and shoulders above the rest of them, which to me just means that they're all going to cannibalize each other's volume, and I never want to have a piece of that in fantasy offenses. If I'm taking a shot at a Miami wide receiver, to me it's Will Fuller, because we've seen Will Fuller be an elite NFL performer when he's healthy. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Parker, assuming health, if Parker or Waddle have the ability to separate from the pack.
Yeah.
Frankie, who are you taking at 10-5?
You guys should both know who I'm taking at 10-5.
I want you to verbalize it, Frankie. Who are you taking at 10-5?
I'm taking Mr. Matt Stafford here. We're getting that Rams stack going. We talked about it in, the hot takes episode where I think he could be, QB3 this year.
Sure.
I think at 10 and in the 10th round, he's probably the best quarterback you're getting in this range to go up into that upper echelon, just based on, the offense that he's in with Cooper and Woods. Tannehill was another good choice, but obviously he went before me.
I will say too, I think it's smart to lock him up there because you saw Matty Ice go right after him, and now that Matty Ice and Matt Stafford are off the board, I'm just looking at the quarterbacks left. There's no one that I like as my QB1, which means that, like, Vitaly, if you pick a QB1 now, you're not picking someone who you're going to roster for any length of time. You're basically just targeting who has a good week 1 game.
Vitaly's picking Jalen Hurts here.
Jalen Hurts already off the board, 8-1.
It's the one downside, I think, to the mock drafting style is a lot of teams would double up on quarterback that probably don't need to. Like, good example, the guy who has Aaron Rodgers also took Joe Burrow. Like, it made sense.
But some people just do that.
Yeah, some people do.
It's not also at 10-8 I got to have my cake and eat it too. Mike Williams was still there, so I took Mike Williams. He's a guy who I still love his talent. If he can just stay healthy 1 year, he's going to be great. He's probably playing with the best quarterback he's ever played with. Like, would you guys agree with that? And he played for Philip Rivers for part of his career.
Oh yeah, Mike Williams is a guy. Mike Williams is a guy that I like, but I've liked him too much previous years, and he's burned me for multiple years. So It's kind of like prove it to me.
He's also going later than he really ever has before.
Yeah.
And now that we're in the 11th round, I'm torn here because I've got 2 breakout guys that I want to target.
You're looking at the Jonah, aren't you? Jonah staring.
I'm torn here because I really like Jonu's upside this season. I think that Jonu presents probably the most upside out of any receiver on the Patriots. I expect him to lead the Patriots in targets, but Trey Sermon's also still on the board.
Yes.
And I think that Trey Sermon's going to win the 49ers job just due to attrition. He's also a very talented running back, but we know that none of their running backs can stay healthy. I've already got 4 running backs. I don't have a tight end yet, but most of the league already has tight ends. I'm going to roll the dice here on Trey Sermon and see if Jonah makes it back to me. Because I think that getting a 5th running back who has true starter potential in the 11th round is more important to me than locking up a guy who could be a breakout tight end, because we know that, outside of the top probably 4 or 5 tight ends are, 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Yep.
Frankie, what are you thinking at 11-8 here?
Well, I got unlucky, and I should have known this was coming because, if you look at the board, Logan Thomas and Mike Gesicki are on this guy's team, so I had to figure Jonnu Smith wasn't going there. I was hoping for Michael Carter to drop to me as my fifth running back, but, well, it wouldn't have dropped to you. But
Well, I didn't know what your feelings were on Michael Carter, but he was.
I'm just going to pick up another wide receiver here, Marvin Jones.
He's been consistent throughout his career. It wouldn't shock me if he ends up being the number one in Jacksonville.
I mean, we saw him handle that number one role last year. He's always had high touchdown upside just because he is that deep ball threat.
Oh, sure, he has true, maybe not wide receiver one talent.
Oh no,
but I think he's enough of a consistent veteran player that he could end up being he's the fantasy number one for Trevor Lawrence just due to the fact that he knows the game. And he's a very consistent wide receiver.
100%.
So, sadly, Ian, he's not wrapping around you.
You're taking Jonnu there?
I'm taking Jonnu to be the consistent, vet behind Kyle Pitts.
Sure.
Another guy I was looking at.
I'm surprised that you're doubling up on tight ends. It's not typically a strategy that I endorse.
It is not, but with the rookie tight end, and I know that their hit percentage is low, I want to be able to get out of Kyle Pitts and still have a tight end I like, as they're going fast, and there's only a couple more that I liked. So
sure,
I knew if I didn't take them then.
There's still two on the board that I'm fine drafting. I think present similar upside to Jonah.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely some more. So, but I think it's just with the Patriots loving their tight ends, I will love.
Actually, I'm sorry. There's still three on the board that I'd be okay taking.
Yeah,
but two. I would say two that present similar upside to Jonah though. What are you thinking here at 12-4?
So I'm probably gonna go ahead and just grab my quarterback.
You sound so resigned.
Guess
I'll draft a quarterback.
Yes, I will.
Are you taking Kirk here? He's in my opinion, he's easily the best guy still on the board. You can get you have to pick and choose your weeks with him, but you can at least get QB1 weeks out of him.
Yeah, especially with his first week being at Cincinnati.
That should be a shootout.
It should be a shootout, and it should be an easy one for him to perform in. That's kind of what I was going through. I was going through a couple of quarterbacks that I liked that had seen what their week one matchup was.
Sure.
Kirk's not a huge one I like, but I'll take him for week one, and I think
it's hard to get excited for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I'm probably still going to grab another quarterback just to try and see if I can shoot a dart at a guy with late value.
Sure, maybe a Justin Fields or something.
Probably a Winston.
He was getting first team reps today.
Yeah,
he's been starting behind Taysom Hill so far in the training camps, but he is he's actually leading the offense today. So it sounds like they're actually going to let him prove that he's the number one instead of just doing the Taysom Hill nepotism.
Yep.
Frankie, what are you thinking here at 12-5?
I'm literally just going to double down on tight end on Blake Jarwin here. I mean, we saw him go out last season, unfortunately, for my Dallas Cowboys with an injury.
Man, you just love the irrelevant targets on the Cowboys.
Hey,
I'm willing to eat crow on it, but
if you a little bit of the news that just popped up, apparently Devonta Freeman, the former Falcons running back, just signed a 1-year deal with the Saints.
Interesting.
Huh.
Quite.
I don't really know what to think about that. It's probably nothing, honestly.
More importantly, what are you thinking of this pick?
Oh, I'm taking a tight end here. There is only two tight ends left that I really want. I'm not a huge fan of this guy, but the logic behind why he should be good makes sense. He was drafted to be an important pass-catching tight end. The physicals all pan out. There's a lack of other receivers on the team. Like Adam, so I'm going to take Adam Troutman here and just trust the process over my gut because the process says he should be good.
Yes. As we've seen that ends up failing quite a bit.
It does. But hypothetically,
one of my last two picks, one of my favorite dart throws for the end of the drafts just got taken right before your pick, Mr. Darnell Mooney.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I love Darnell Mooney. I was hoping that John Brown was going to fall to me at 13-5. I think he's far and away the best receiver in Las Vegas. I don't believe in any of those rookies that they drafted last year. It's right now to me, it's just the Waller show and that's it. So if he had fallen to me, I would have taken him here, no questions asked. Now that he didn't, it's a little bit more of murky waters for me. I don't now that Randall Cobb's back in the Packers, I don't love Alan Lazard.
Yeah. Top 3 picks right now are basically all guys who might be getting traded.
Yeah, it's
Crowder, Ertz, and Mack.
It's tough here. I'm gonna reach a little bit on just I think a safety guy at wide receiver and a guy who's being completely overlooked. Actually, there's 2 of them here, but I'm gonna take the one that I think has a higher target ceiling. Russell Gage just being ignored.
Yes.
He's being straight up ignored as a fantasy producer, despite the fact that he did very well last season when Julio was on the shelf. And now Julio's not there, and there's all these vacated targets. And he's one of the biggest reasons I talked about in the Kyle Pitts, in my Kyle Pitts take, or my anti-Kyle Pitts take. He's one of the biggest reasons that I don't think that Kyle Pitts is going to break out, because I think Russell Gage is going to be a standout performer this year, especially where he's going. 13-5 is highway robbery for a guy who could have 100-plus targets.
Yeah.
Frankie, what are you taking here at 13-8? You got 2 picks left.
I will give you the free advice. I was going to say it anyways. Do not take Denzel Mims because he has been lining up with the 3rd team for the Jets. The 3rd team. So I am completely off him until that changes.
Frankie, if you want some free advice from me, the other guy I was looking at there, I think he's a lower target ceiling, probably 90 to 100 targets maybe, but Jacoby Myers is still on the board.
But I think I know who he's taking.
There's no Cowboys. Oh, wait, no, he could take Dalton Schultz.
I could take Dalton Schultz. I was thinking about taking Dalton Schultz. I wasn't actually taking Dalton Schultz.
Rip it. Not who I thought.
Who did you think I was taking?
Mr. Paris Campbell.
I was, and then again, the Carson Wentz news, no.
Yeah.
I don't love Christian Kirk. I think that's going to be a good team, but I mean, they just drafted Rondale Moore. They still have, a whole host of other guys that are just kind of there. Andy Isabella, all of them. Like, to me, that team is DeAndre Hopkins and all these other guys, and they're all just going to kind of be there, and they're going to catch some passes. They might have good games, but I don't see the upside of Kirk this season, honestly. Vitaly, what are you looking at here at 13-9?
All right. So I know one of my last picks, and I think I can wait till 14-4 to take him.
Sure.
But there's just a whole lot of nothing.
Sammy Watkins is still on the board. You could take him, win week 1, and then drop him.
Yeah. I think more so I'll just take a very long dart throw on Marlon Mack just to give me another running back that if things go poorly for some reason, I can have him.
That's tough. Marlon Mack is just...
It's not anywhere excited about that pick, but that's why
I can never bring myself to draft running backs with Achilles issues. The Achilles is just too much of a career ender. So what defense are you taking here, Vitaly?
I'm not, because I'm going to employ the strategy of just because you have to draft one doesn't mean you always have to. And like I said, I need quarterbacks, so I'm going to
that statement doesn't track. If you have to draft one, you have to draft one. Because some fantasy clients do mandate that you fill your roster. What you're talking about is, we'll talk about this in our tips episode, is using an extra roster spot on a potential training camp or preseason standout, and then if they suck in the preseason, cutting them and picking up a defense.
Yep. So Marlon Mack's probably going to be the cut for the defense there.
Sure.
So if I'm in a league where I have to get a defense, Marlon Mack doesn't get drafted, this guy gets drafted. I'm going to go ahead and take Desean Watson right there.
Interesting.
So Desean Watson has just so much talent that he is a crazy good, like, if this offseason, like, all the news and everything didn't happen, let's just say he was just getting traded, we would still be talking about him in the late rounds as being like, you don't know where he's going, but
if he was just he wouldn't be going in the late rounds if that was the case. If we knew he was going to play a full season, and just there was like, the trade's coming, it's coming eventually, we don't know where he's going, but he's still Deshaun Watson, you're still getting a full slate of games out of him barring injury.
Yep.
I mean, he'd be going in the probably middle to late single digits.
Yeah. For me, it's one of those ones where I will hold that chip and see what it is, and because it's my last pick, I lose almost nothing if I have to drop him.
Sure. So for me, I am going to also employ this strategy. There's a couple guys here that I'm interested in that I think I'm going to have a clearer picture on if they're going to be successful or not. and as the actual NFL season approaches. For me, the two people I'm looking at here are Rondale Moore and Traquan Smith.
Yep.
I really like Rondale Moore. I liked him coming out of college. I think he presents a ton of upside at the wide receiver position. The Cardinals do need somebody to step up into that wide receiver 2 slot. We've seen it's not Christian Kirk at this point. If he can come out and dominate and take advantage of the targets that can't go to DeAndre Hopkins, I think he is in a really good spot down there. And then obviously Traquan Smith. Somebody else has to catch balls out there
it's Devonta Freeman
in New Orleans. I'm gonna roll the dice on the rookie here and take Rondale Moore. And you know what? If come end of August he sucks, he's not doing it, or he's not doing anything special in training camp, he's off the roster. I pick up a defense. Yep. All right. Before we wrap this up, let's just quickly each talk about what we liked and didn't like about that draft. Let's do I'd say three points each, but just could we are running up on time? Just try to make it concise. Vitali.
Just 3 points for the draft as general. I was surprised a little bit about the quarterbacks going as early as they did. I feel like there was a lot of push earlier than I normally see. I was happy with. I think the big thing I'm happy with is the great balance I have between running back and tight end, running back and wide receiver.
Sure. With
having an elite running back, a solid core of running backs, but elite wide receivers, and I think that it's a team that could really take the top off of the league if everything breaks right. But it definitely has a chance of breaking the other way.
Sure. Frankie, any takeaways positively or negatively about your team?
I'm very confused why Zeke went top 4. That's my main one. Looking at my team, I'm very happy I got Najee in the 3rd.
Yep.
And just aside, it kind of goes to what I was saying before. Basically, pick 4 to 8 for me is like iffy, depending how your draft falls. I'm like in the bookends more and more every time I do a mock draft because it's becoming more and more consistent that I'm kind of at the end of my draft there weren't a lot of running backs that were either getting sniped by you guys or just weren't falling to me, and I'm noticing a lot in those middle picks, and that's another thing that if you do get to pick your picks in draft, I would say go for top 3 or bottom 3.
Yeah, I think for me the one of the biggest things that I that I was surprised about with this draft was just how, because obviously running backs are going to go heavy and they're going to go heavier in standard because they're the most impactful position in standard. But I was still shocked at how fast they went off the board. I mean, Josh Jacobs being taken in the early 4th. The running back position became barren fast. And I think if you look at some of these teams in our draft, like Team 10, for example, who was the biggest outlier here, who just kind of kept taking the best player available, and suddenly it's round 5 and you have 5 wide receivers because you just kept taking the best player on the board. At some point, you have to go against conventional wisdom and reach, because otherwise you end up with Kenyon Drake and Latavius Murray as your 1 and 2 running backs, and that's bad. Yeah. To my team specifically, I honestly don't hate what my team looks like taking Kyler Murray in the 4th. Obviously, getting Dalvin at 1-5 was a huge lucky break. You can't count on that if you're drafting in the 5 hole. But, getting Kyler Murray at 4-8, having my running backs be Dalvin and David, and then Calvin Ridley, T. Higgins, and Jerry Jeudy for my wide receiver core. That is a team just absolutely splattered with talent. And it doesn't require a lot for that team to break right, for that team to have a really good season. That's a lot of good players on that roster.
Yeah, 4 and 5 are slowly becoming my favorite positions because you're getting the best at the top. You're getting the last guy that's still an elite running back.
And then you still have great picks on the wraparounds. I do really like drafting out of the 5 to 7 spot this season so far. Obviously, time will tell if that continues to be the case, but. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think early round quarterback is as dead as I thought it was this season. Provided that the rest of your team looks good as you go into those rounds, you'd be taking that quarterback.
And that's where draft experience comes in.
Yeah, it's obviously case by case. You can't just blanket. You can't blanket statement it. All right, well, that'll do it for us for this standard draft today. I hope you enjoyed sticking along as we talked through all of our picks and some of the other picks that went on the board. We'll be doing, like I said, we'll be doing more of these over the course of the preseason. Next week will be our August best ball episode, so tune in then. And we'll also be bringing you guys some more content this month, as we've talked about. At the end of July, August is when we go to two episodes a week. So keep an eye out for those. I'm not going to spoil the slate of episodes, but we've got some good stuff coming up in August as well. And once again, if you guys have any questions, issues, concerns, hit us up on Twitter, leave a comment down in the comments section, and obviously ring that notification bell so you can see when new content drops. See you guys when we see you.